What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin, and today I was going to show you how I repot my Adenium obesum. Now you probably know it as the desert rose, and I'm sure it's got a lot of other common names that you probably heard it as. But I've had this guy for close to 4, maybe 5 years now. And I bought him at Walmart a long time ago, and he was actually in the same pot that he's in now. And as you can tell, he's really in there. He's packed in there tightly, and he's losing a bit of his leaves. We're at the tail end of winter time, so it looks like he's really just kind of hanging in there for dear life. Actually looks like he's dabbing on me. But I'm going to go ahead and transplant him and put him in a new pot, and I just wanted to show you guys how I do that. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and cut him out of his original pot. And I am worried about this because I'm going to make a mess. Got a trash can underneath me to catch whatever it'll catch. So as always, make sure your pruning shears and your scissors or whatever you're using are sanitized. You want to clean them and make sure that they are not going to spread any disease, or if you accidentally nick your plant, you're not going to be inviting any rot or pest or anything of that nature into your plant. I'm going to go ahead and empty out a bunch of the soil. And like I said, he's really packed in there tightly, and he is pretty root bound, but that is okay because just like most other desert plants, they thrive on neglect and harsh times. Alright, and we got him out of his pot. And just like I said, he's pretty root bound. Unfortunately, I did not grab my root rake, and I watered him a couple days ago and then let him dry out some to try to make this a little bit easier on myself. But I think I did let him dry out too much. But thankfully, these guys, they need really quick draining soil. So most of this is just dirt and sand. So that'll come right off. And these guys don't really have that larger roots. I mean, their bulbous parts down here to the part of their trunk and their base. His is rather large. And again, that's where they store a majority of their water for the harsh times and drought. But it shouldn't be too bad of an undertaking. And as you're doing it, you'll just want to gently massage the roots and the substrate with your thumb or fingers. You're not trying to cut anything, and you're just trying to knock what little bit off you can. So be gentle. Now, I'm going to be cutting some of this root mass back. And as a general rule of thumb for just about any plant, you can remove about 3/4 of the root mass without actually doing any harm to your plant. So don't worry about nicking some spots and taking some roots out, because that's just going to happen. But yeah, no, he's got a pretty good mass down here from where most of his roots are starting to fuse and get bigger and store water. Now you want to remove just about as much substrate as you can, just because if you're like me and you're wanting to go ahead and trim up this root mass just so the plant can kind of grow out into its new pot, you'll want to cut it back as much substrate as you can so that you can really get in there and get pretty close to trimming most of the roots away. Now, I would advise you to probably wait until closer to spring, but we've got about a couple more weeks. And I just got some new LED lights in, and I've got him sitting under there to get him a little bit more ready for the summertime. So I think he'll be fine to go ahead and just be repotted. Alright, yeah. That is a healthy rootstock right there. That looks really good. I'm really proud of that. Now, like I said, everything doesn't have to be off there. With your sanitized pruning shears, you want to just kind of cut back whatever you feel like. And remember, as I said, you're allowed to remove about 3/4 of the roots without doing harm to your plant. And mainly you're just cutting back the really long ones, just so that when it's in its new pot, it's got a lot of room to grow. And then as you get towards the base and the bottom part of the root mass down here, a lot of these other roots are going to be growing in pretty thick. So take care not to cut them unless you actually have sharp enough pruning shears to actually do so. Now, as always, I get 100% cinnamon and keep that on me if I'm transplanting or repotting in case I accidentally do nick a side and I'm worried about making an opening for bacteria or rot or pests, because, as we know, 100% cinnamon acts as a natural antibiotic and will keep your nicked area on the plant healthy. And what you can, just kind of comb out to make sure it's not stuck to another root so that you don't miss it. Some of them will be kind of braided together. And just take your time. Give your plant a little look over to make sure everything looks healthy. Because you don't see the roots too often since they're, really below the soil. But you want to make sure everything in there looks pretty healthy. You don't see any discoloration. You don't smell anything that's off-putting other than the soil. And you don't see or feel any kind of mushiness. Any of those three might indicate that you're beginning to get root rot. And that can be a bit of a fight. Now, I've basically got the roots about where I want them. And I've gone through just kind of make sure everything's loose. Everything's fairly even. And looks good. Now, you really kind of want to keep the soil at about the same line that it was. So now I've got my new pot, and it's red. And as you all know, I do like red, and so does my fiance. And with all that root mass, it's going to need a good amount of room to kind of grow out in there. You really don't have to repot these that often. That's one of the great things about them. I mean, there's many great things about them. They are a great bonsai specimen. They flower in the spring. This one's got a real pretty kind of red and pinkish color. It attracts hummingbirds and bees and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of good pollinators that we like. And I'm going to set him back in his original case while I start putting some of my trusty Miracle Grow cacti and succulent mix in there. Now, typically, you don't really have to add much, if anything, to your Miracle Grow mix because they've done that for you. They've studied that stuff for a long time and figured out what kind of nutrients go well in there and sand. So I don't really have to add any perlite or bark chips or sand or anything else to kind of give the plant a good drainage. But last time I didn't think that he was doing so good with the watering, because here in Kentucky we get water like every day just about. In the spring and summertime, it's always raining here. But I will mix in just a little bit of perlite. Not much. I'm just grabbing a tiny little bit, throwing it in there, and then adding way more soil in there to kind of mix it up and make it even. I probably really won't add too much more because I can go ahead and mix all that at the very bottom and kind of mix it in with my hand. And it's really good with drainage and aeration. But like I said, if you want to add a little bit of pumice or perlite or bark chips, anything just to kind of help the drainage, feel free to. It's not going to hurt the plant. But just be careful when you're adding that perlite. That stuff is dusty. You don't want to take a chance of that settling in your lungs. Alright. Now, as you're doing this, you kind of want to pack it down a little bit, not too tight, because you want to get rid of some of the air that's packed in there. And start making a little divot down inside. Take your fist and kind of make a little divot so that it's got a little spot that it could settle down into, a little hole. And then add your rest of your substrate up kind of on the sides like a big bowl. And just kind of come up on the sides there. Make a little spot for him to sit in. And he's going to have to go a little bit further in there. And I think, yeah, right about there is where I want him. And then as you start getting substrate in there, he'll hold himself up. And remember, as you add your soil, just kind of pack it down some, tamp it down to get rid of any air pockets, because that'll harm the roots. Yeah, it looks fairly centered. I'll see if I can scoot him back a little bit. But you want him about as centered as you can get him. Don't want him growing lopsided. Now the great thing about cacti and succulents, they don't really need a whole lot in the way of nutrition all the time. So they don't need a ton of soil in here. Now I've packed him down pretty tightly. I'll probably get another bag just to kind of make sure that the substrate's even all up in here. But I'm packing the soil down, so it's gonna look a little bit less full than I really want it to. But I don't know. I haven't decided. I might take some pond pebbles or rocks and just kind of add them on top just to give it more of that weight to kind of anchor him down and look a little bit better. Or I might just add some more substrate. But I think he's got enough in there for now. So I think he'll be good. And as I said, if you do accidentally nick him and you get a little spot that you're worried about creating an opening for pest or disease, sprinkle 100% cinnamon on there and he'll be right as rain. Now, I was a little bit more sloppier than I'd like to be, but I think he looks pretty good. He looks right at home, and the only thing I need to do is just give him a little bit of water to make sure I empty out all the air pockets and kind of get them out of there, down in the soil. Adding water all the way around it will make sure that you get rid of those air pockets and give him a fresh start. As I said, spring is but a couple weeks away, so I would kind of hold off on repotting him until the springtime, because that is ideal. But as I said, I got some new LEDs and I had him under it, and he's really liking that. And I think he'll straighten out some and be ready for the spring. I had on a bunch of masks. I did trim him back a little bit, but I think he looks pretty good. I think he's spring ready. They are desert dwellers, so they don't need a whole lot of water. And as I said earlier, they do kind of store a bunch in this trunk area. So do not give them a bunch of water, and their substrate always needs to be able to drain relatively fast. Now, you'll notice I do have a saucer on the bottom of this pot. But actually the saucer is broken, so water is able to leak all the way through it. But if you have a saucer under yours, make sure you do drain all the excess water out after about 20 minutes. That's really all the plant's going to be able to hold after 20 minutes of soaking in water. And these desert dwellers do not like to be saturated and standing in water all day. So take care to actually drain that. Make sure he gets plenty of sunlight, anywhere from about 6 hours. Pests, you kind of have to worry about spider mites, aphids, mealybugs, the usual. But anything you see on there, just throw them in the bathtub, take them out back, and spray them down with the water hose, and he'll be good. They are very easy plants to care for. Well, guys, that's really all I know about this plant. And as I said, I really did want to put him in a new pot, and I think he looks really good. You guys, feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know how you all are doing, and if you've ever had any kind of success or failures with this desert rose. They are beautiful plants. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it. That way you'll know anytime I've uploaded a new video. You guys take it easy, have a good one, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you, YouTube.